Look at the oceans today, and you'll likely find a United States carrier strike group projecting military power. Behind those ships is an economy measuring in the tens of trillions of dollars, driving the global financial system. Look at any modern country, and you see American cultural exports on screens, American software in phones, and American brands on shelves. 2.5 centuries ago, the United States was a fragile collection of 13 colonies huddled on North America's eastern edge. When they declared independence in 1776, they fought an empire with a global footprint that dwarfed their tiny territory. Surviving that conflict and growing into a modern superpower required a highly specific sequence of events. The nation's rise is a story of distinct geographic, natural, and structural advantages, where each new asset provided the security or capital required to build the next development. The earliest structural advantage the United States possessed was physical geography. While major European nations constantly spent resources defending hostile land borders, the U.S. sat between two vast oceans, providing a massive natural defensive barrier against foreign armies. Inside those borders lay a massive, ready-made transportation network. The Mississippi River system allowed raw materials and agricultural goods to be moved cheaply across thousands of miles of fertile land. Because the country didn't have to constantly defend against neighboring superpowers, it could turn its attention almost entirely inward. The young nation aggressively expanded its borders westward, securing massive reserves of coal, iron, and timber. Securing this land and extracting its resources required a severe human toll. The government systematically displaced Native American nations through warfare and broken treaties, while early agricultural production relied heavily on the expansion of enslaved labor. By the mid-19th century, the United States secured the geographic protection and immense natural resources necessary to build an industrial economic engine. To extract those resources, the country needed labor. Over the 19th and early 20th centuries, millions of immigrants arrived with different skills and ambitions, creating a massive, continuous influx of workers. This expanding labor pool collided directly with the Industrial Revolution. Workers poured into factories, powering an aggressive expansion in steel production, heavy manufacturing, and railroad construction. American companies rapidly moved away from individual craftsmanship and learned how to build complex goods on moving assembly lines. The ability to produce items at a scale that lowered costs made products accessible to a national consumer market. More production created a need for more jobs. Those workers had wages to spend, creating more consumers and driving higher demand. Mastering this self-reinforcing cycle allowed the country to convert raw geographic potential into a high-volume industrial economy. Even with massive industrial capacity, the American economy remained vulnerable, suffering a brutal collapse during the Great Depression that left millions without work. This situation shifted violently in 1941. When a direct military strike hit American territory at Pearl Harbor, the nation instantly converted its dormant factories into a total wartime production machine. Because the mainland was protected by oceans, American factories operated safely away from enemy bombers. While industrial centers across Europe and Asia were physically reduced to rubble, the U.S. steadily supplied the Allied forces. The volume of industrial output surpassed the capacity of all other nations combined. Assembly lines that once built civilian cars were now churning out thousands of tanks, ships, and military aircraft, providing a decisive logistical advantage. When the war ended in 1945, the major powers of the world were devastated. The United States walked out of the conflict with its infrastructure completely intact, leaving it as the world's sole industrialized superpower. The U.S. used its intact post-war economy to shape the international financial order. Hosting dozens of nations at Bretton Woods, the United States established a system that locked the U.S. dollar in as the world's dominant reserve currency, forcing global trade to flow through American institutions. The government also established massive military alliances, like NATO, allowing the military to project strategic power and secure trade routes across continents without needing to deploy forces alone. To maintain an edge against the Soviet Union during the Cold War, the federal government poured resources into scientific development. The competition pushed engineering boundaries, famously culminating in putting human beings on the moon. The intense focus on logistics and aerospace required massive calculations, driving early investments in computing. Those initial military research programs laid the groundwork for modern electronics, eventually blooming into Silicon Valley's dominance over global information networks. Financial leverage through the dollar a global network of military logistics, and control over modern software platforms created a web of influence that allowed the country to project power without always relying on direct military force. Two oceans provided physical security. That safety enabled aggressive territorial expansion, which in turn secured the natural resources that fed a manufacturing base operating at a scale no other nation could match. That industrial capacity won 2 global wars, leaving the United States in the unique position to design the international banking system, dictate global military alliances, and export its culture to every corner of the earth. But these historical advantages rarely last forever. As global networks shift and new economies rise, the strict geographic and industrial advantages that built American dominance are becoming less absolute. This chart compares recent trajectories in global economic growth. It shows competing international markets rapidly closing the gap with the US. Physical oceans offer very little protection against cyber warfare, and America's grip on technological monopolies is actively being challenged by developments in artificial intelligence and rising global powers. The decisions and geographic fortunes that elevated 13 colonial colonies into a global superpower form a complete historical chapter. The question now is whether the massive systems built over the last 2 centuries are flexible enough to adapt to an increasingly competitive future.